Bruchim ha'aboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Chof Hey Amud Aleph. Starting Daf Chof Daled Amud Beis, 10 lines from the bottom. Our Mishnah states that there are 4 payasos over the course of the day. 4 different times they would cast lots in order to determine which kohanim from that base Av would do the avodah. The Gemara now asks, Lama mefisin? Why would they make different lots to determine which kohanim does the avodah? Ask the Gemara, Lama mefisin? Kida amar, like we said. Otherwise, the kohanim will fight, and therefore we don't want to then cause fighting amongst the kohanim. So we'll determine who gets the avodah ayidei lots. Elalama mefisin chechoizin mafis. No, the Gemara's question was, why do we have lots during the course of the day? 4 different lots. Make one big payas in the morning, which would determine all of the positions of the kohanim of that day, and that should be sufficient. Answers the Gemara, Rabbi Yochanan, kedei lahargish kol ha'azara, in order to then excite the entire courtyard in the Beis Hamikdash. Shneimar, it says, Asher yachdov namtik soid, together we take sweet counsel. Bebeis Elokim nahalech berogesh, in the house of Hashem we will walk with excitement. So we want to make excitement, and therefore when you cause different lots to take place, there's a big rash, and therefore it's a big kavod to the melech. Ask the Gemara, Mamai mafisin, what clothing do the kohanim that are there for the pious wear? Do they wear big day kodesh? That means they're big day kahuna, or they wear big day chol? Rav Nachman Omar big day chol, Rav Sheish Omar big day kodesh machlokes. Rav Nachman says they wear their regular weekday clothing. Rav Sheish says no, they wear big day kahuna. Rav Nachman Omar big day chol, the Amris big day kodesh. Ike balei zroyos decham say va'avdei. Says Rav Nachman, I'll tell you they must wear big day chol, because if not, they would wear big day kodesh. Those ones who were then strong and what we call balei zroyos, they would use their strength to then go ahead and force their way in to do the avodah, even if they win the lots. Rav Sheish Omar b'bigdei kodesh. Rav Sheish argues and say they wore bigdei kodesh. Di amris b'bigdei chol agav chavivusei mikrei va'avdei. If they wore bigdei chol and they won the lots, so they would be so enthusiastic with the chavivus of the avodah, they might do the avodah in their bigdei chol without remembering to change to bigdei kodesh. Rav Nachman, where do I know to say that these who are participating in the lots would wear big day chol? This not, it states in the Mishnah, Mosrun lechazonin, the kohanim were given over to the chazonin, those were the shamoshin, v'hoyu mafshitin oison es big dayhen, and they would remove their clothes, v'lohoyu menichin alein ela michnasayim bilvad, only leaving their michnasayim. The top of Chof Hey Amud Aleph. So says Rav Nachman, my lab ba'oisin shezochel lefayis. Are we not talking about those who won the pious, and therefore, since they won the pious, therefore they're becoming then disrobed by the shamoshin? Or Marav Hune bar Yehuda Marav Sheishis loy ba'oisin sheloi zoch lefayis. It's those who did not win the pious that we're talking about, because they were wearing big day kodesh, and since they were not winning the pies, they had to then remove their clothes. Hochinam mistabro, and it's mistaber to say that we're talking about those who are wearing the big day kodesh. In fact, they were removing their clothes and leaving their michnasayim. The isal kedaita boisin shezoch lefais lo hayu menichna len ela michnasayim bilvad. Because if you want to say that those who were zoich in the pious, they would only leave their mechnasayim, and if indeed they were wearing big day chol, v'hatanya, it states minayin shlo yehi davar koydem mechnasayim. Where do we know, as the Brisa, that the kohanim would first begin wearing their mechnasayim? That's the first garment that they wear on their bodies. Talmud loyma mechnasei bad yu al besoroy. In other words, the first garments of the big day kahuna that are put on them have to be the mechnasayim. As it says, the Michnasei bad yu al besoroi, it will be worn on besoroi, mashma, that they didn't have anything on other than their big day the Mechnasayim. So that means the Mechnasayim are the first of the Big Day Kahuna. So you can prove from over here that indeed they're wearing Big Day Kodesh and they're disrobing them by leaving their Mechnasayim on. And we're talking about the ones who did not win the payas, says Rav Sheshes. The Idach, Reb Nachman would say, Holo Kashya, Hochiktani, this is how you have to read this Mishnah. Or this Brisa, Oiden Alein Big Day Chol, Malbishin Oisam Michnesei Kodesh. While they had their Big Day Chol, they would then robe them, they would put their Michnasayim on. In other words, they shouldn't become naked. They had their Big Day Chol, and they had to then disrobe them and put on their Big Day Kodesh. So how would they do that? They would do that by leaving their Big Day Chol, with the exception of the Machnasayim, where they would have been put on the Big Day Kodesh, the Machnasayim of the Kahuna. Then they would go ahead and remove the rest of their weekday clothing, whereby the Kohen would be left with his Machnasayim that are Big Day Kodesh. Rav Sheshes, where do I know to say that they're wearing Big Day Kodesh? Rav Sheshes, he says the tiny because it's in the Brisa. Lishkas Hagozis Kimin Mesilki Gedoylo Haisa. The Lishkas Hagozis, which was on the northern part of the Azara, that was made like a big building, a big structure. Haisa Payis b'Mizracha, the Payis was performed in the eastern part of the Lishkas Hagozis. V'zokin Yoshe b'Ma'arova, and a Chacham would sit on the west side of the Lishkas Hagozis. And the Kohanim would then get in a circle and they would stand. And the one who was in charge of the payas would take one of the Kohanim's mitznefes off his head. From there we would know is the beginning of the payas, the beginning of the counting. If indeed we're talking about that they wore Big Day Chol, asked Rav Sheshes, mitznefes Big Day Chol mi'ika. Are they wearing a mitznefes? Mitznefes is one of the Big Day Kahuna. So here we have a proof that indeed they were wearing Big Day Kodesh when they did the payas. The Gemara says, indeed they were wearing Big Day Chol, you can say, because Kidetani Rav Yehuda, Vitem Rav Shmuel, Bar Yehuda. Koyin she'aseh solei imoy k'soines, oived ba'avodas yachid. The mother who made the k'soines for her son, the kohen, would be able to do the avodah of the avodas yachid, not avodas sibor, the avodas yachid. So we see that indeed this is considered to be not necessarily the classical Big Day Kahuna. So to over here, the mother could have made the mitznefes, whereby that's what's taken off of the kohen. Rabbi learns from this brisa that we just quoted, Gabi Lishkas Hagozis. Shmamina Lishkas Hagozis Chetzia Bekodesh v'Chetzi Bechol. Half of it was located in the Azara, in the Mokum that was Kodesh, and half of it was outside of the Azara in Harabayas, less Kedusha, non-consecrated area. V'Shmamina Shnei Psochim Hayu Lo. That there were two openings in the Lishkas Hagozis. Echad Pasuach Bekodesh v'Echad Pasuach Bechol. One was open to the Kodesh, the other one's open to the Chol. The Isal Kedaitoch Kula Bekodesh, because if you're going to say the entire Lishkas Hagozis was located in the Azara, in a consecrated area, Zokin Yoshib B'Ma'arava, can you have a Chacham sitting down in the west side of the Lishkas Hagozis? The only people who can sit in the Azara is those who are Beis Malchus, the Melech. And therefore, if you're not from Beis Malchus, the Malchus Beis Melech, you cannot sit. And therefore, it wouldn't be possible for the Zokin to be Yoshev. And if you're going to say the whole thing was in the Chol, outside the Azara, then Payis b'Mizracha, can the Payis be performed in the east? We said that the reason why we make all these payasos is in order to then bring out excitement in the Beis Elokim, which is in the Azara. So therefore can't be that it's located outside the Azara. Elo shmamino, says Abaye in conclusion, chetzia bekodesh vechetzia bechol. The Lishkas HaGozis had half located in the Azara and half outside the Azara. V'yisal kedaitoch Pesach echad yesh lo upesuach lekodesh. And if you would think that it only had one opening, and that was open to the Azara, to the Kodesh, then Zokin Yoshib B'Marava, still could the Zokin rather, the Chacham sit in the western part of the Azara. After all, Vatnan, it says, Alishkos habnuyos bechol, upsuchos lekodesh, toichen kodesh. Even if it's located entirely in Chol, but if the opening is opening towards Kodesh, so then it's then has the status of Kedusha, whereby again the Chacham cannot sit in the west side of the Lishka. And if you're going to say alternatively that it had only one Pesach and it was open to the Chol outside of the Azara, then Payis b'Mizracha, can the Payis be in the east? After all, then that would have then the din of all being non-consecrated area. So that can't be either. Ella says, Rabbi Abaye, to conclude, Lav shmamina shnei psochim hayulo. There are two psochim in the Lishkas HaGozis. Echad pasuach bekodesh ve'echad pasuach lechol. So Abaye explains that the Lishkas HaGozis, half of it or part of it was located in the Azara, while the other part was located outside the Azara. Part of it had a Pesach that was opened to Kodesh, and part of it had a Pesach that was open to the Chol. And therefore, the area where the Chacham was sitting, that was in the west, that was the part that was opened to the Chol, and therefore that's where, the west part, that's where he was sitting. Whereas the east part that had Kedusha, the east part, that's where they'd actually make the Pais itself to complete the Pasuk that Beis Elokim Yahalech Beregish. In the house of Elokim, they would be excited, they would go with excitement, that's where they performed the Pais.